Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh. This is Living the Line, and today we're joined by Matt Canning, an artist that I came across when I was looking at Menachem at Escape Pod's Instagram feed. I saw this setting on a table, and I texted Menachem and I said, "Menachem, what the heck is that thing? That looks awesome. The thing on the clipboard looks amazing." And so I had to get myself a copy. So we'll talk a little bit about this, and then I have some questions for Matt about the technology that he was using to do this as well.
Sure.
But thanks for joining us, Matt. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. That's good.
Where are you streaming in from?
So I'm from Southampton in the UK. Yeah, it's pretty. It's nighttime here now, so it's dark, it's cold, but it's not raining, so that's good.
The positive, yeah. Thanks for joining us at night.
No
So I'll be honest, I don't know much about you other than this comic I got. So can you tell us a little bit about like your educational background? I know you do label design, but
yeah,
just any more info you have, I'd love to know.
yeah. So I started, illustrating and doing some graphic design in like my mid-20s. I just sort of, I was in a band at the time, and we were on a label, and I started doing some sleeves for them, some posters and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of just got into it really. I always used to draw when I was a kid, and then I got into music, started playing guitar and stuff. And then I didn't know, I didn't know drawing, no art for kind of 10 years really. Yeah, and then it's always been a thing that I've enjoyed, and after the band, I just kind of thought, what do I want to do with my life? What can I get into? What career do I want, kind of thing. So yeah, it's been an unusual route, really. I just started doing some logo designs for like friends and stuff, and just kind of building a portfolio. So just started doing that. Now I work for Unity Brewing, who make kind of craft beer in Southampton here, and I've been doing their can designs for like 4 years, which is cool. And I do other stuff like for magazines, packaging stuff, just all sorts of different sort of bits and pieces really. And then a few years ago, I started really getting into making my own comics. I've always read comics, but I started to kind of take it a bit more seriously. And that's where I want to sort of move into really, like narrative art and kind of making my own books, maybe get published, with a publisher one day, but so just starting off small with that one you've got there, like Sprats with Gillian, is only 4 pages, but yeah. I'm kind of really into making the physical product like a special thing, like really tactile. So I'm trying to make all my books like that,
It's pretty interesting to me that the crossover between art making, visual art making, and music making, and how there's a lot of us out there who have the impulse to sort of make, and then it can be sort of directed in different directions. And when you're in your 20s, if you have an option between something that's totally social that you get to do with other people, and collaborative process, and this thing that involves you just sitting, staring at a white sheet of paper for 20 hours on end. I mean, which one are you going to choose, right?
No, exactly. And after like playing in bands, like playing gigs and being busy, like rehearsing and all that stuff, I guess now I like expressing my creativity in a more like solitary way,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cool thing about comics, is that once it's out there in the world, like that's it's there. Do you know what I mean? Like once it's done, it's done. Do you know what I mean? Where like with music making, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's never done, because you're always trying to like move on to the next thing, trying to
Well, and the way that the physical product has diminished in the past, decade or so in terms of music, you don't get to lavish that same kind of attention and know that somebody's going to have the actual object with them, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And in terms of comics, I never read comics on a screen. Like I know people do, but like I've never done that. Like I just love having the book there. More so than like a novel or whatever. There's just something special about like the printed page. And like with the advent of like small press and stuff, and that resurgence and like kind of small time creators, it feels like a really exciting sort of dynamic world, that I'm trying to sort of get into, it's really cool.
And you seem very, I mean, you've talked about like holding the book, but you also said that in upcoming projects you're interested in the physicality of it too, and that was the thing that immediately caught my eye in that photograph that Menachem had. And then when I got it, the thing that makes me love this little project that you did so much is it so justifies itself as a physical object as well. And so that's something that you're really, really heavily invested in, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and because like I'm only doing them in small quantities, like I can hand make elements, I can hand cut stuff, a hand sticker it, just make it kind of as handmade as possible, and that feels special, when like you pick something up like that in a comic book store or whatever, it's kind of, you've got the artist kind of, you've got like the fingerprint of the artist, on the product, which I really like,
We've got your DNA, sir.
yeah, it's all over it,
And then,
when
go ahead, Sean.
you're talking about sleeve designs and things like that, I think some of the most successful and most interesting album designs of all time have sometimes incorporated that kind of thing. Even something like the Beatles self-titled album, even though that's a mainstream object in every way, they were, I don't know if you guys know that they were individually numbered at the time. And they would have impressions with the numbering on the cover, and it's a striking design, even though these days it's like sort of played out 50 years later where people have done it multiple times. Or you think about a group like XTC, which lots of their sleeves were designed by their singer Andy Partridge. Integrated a lot of sort of disposable elements where some part of it would degrade in some fashion as part of the thing. It seems to me that there's a sort of fertile territory to sort of reaching past the the modernity of like I can make 1 million of these by hitting a button and all these presses go, and sort of combining that with the hand hewn aspect, like the thing that you've made is hand hewn and you've modified it in these ways that
absolutely. No, it's really cool. It's hard to make money like doing that sort of stuff, do you know what I mean? But it's cool as well, it just feels nice,
And then with Sprats for Gillian in particular, like I'm curious about and I don't mean it as a pun because there's a chicken at the end of the story, but like the chicken and the egg of when you're coming up with this story in particular, or when you're thinking about other ideas that you have forthcoming, are you looking at the story you want to tell and then thinking what would be the best way for me to manifest this with these more like couture physical elements? Or are you kind of looking at like, man, like I got this idea, I've got this clipboard and like, well,
Sprats for Gillian started off as like a Guardian comic, because the Guardian run a yearly competition for like a short story prize. Especially for like for graphic like comics, and they have to be 4 pages.
Oh, okay.
And I applied for that, I didn't win, like I was quite pleased with how it turned out, so I thought like, what can I do with it, you know, it's a 4-page comic. Like, how can I make that a thing that people might want to buy, you know? And then I found these A5 size clipboards, and I was like, clipboards, you know, that kind of mirrors what's going on in the story bit. And they're not too expensive, you know, and you can kind of work out the price, you know, how you're doing it.
Well, and that's what, so I'm just showing these so people can see them. But that's what I loved about it, is like having that clipboard put me in the place of this main character who basically becomes besties with this little baby chick that he saves.
Yeah, that's it, you know, because I used to work in a raw food like pet shop. I did it for like a year a few years ago, so that's where that story comes from. And the guy in the story is pretty much me, you know. You know,
so you had a baby. Did you have a favorite baby chick there?
Yeah, well, you know, we had, oh man, like, you know, we had a lot of baby chicks. You know, they come in these boxes of like 100 frozen chicks, you know, and like you're surrounded by these frozen kind of dead animals like everywhere, you know, and it, you know, it has an effect on you, like working there. It's like a minimum wage job, but like it's kind of, yeah, it's really weird. Like, it does sort of make you think like, wow, there's a lot of like, you know, dead life in here that I'm sorting out and arranging. It's quite an odd job, you know. It's quite weird.
Yeah, that's not something I would have ever imagined as a job. Like, they're spilling out, like it looks like a bunch of Peeps, that awful Easter candy.
Yeah, no, it's it's crazy. And when I worked there, you know, I knew I wasn't going to work there for long, so like I knew that I wanted to commemorate it somehow in a comic, you know, in some form, you know. So I just reduced my experience down to 4 pages, you know.
And then I'm assuming the clipboard was a standard part of your experience there, like taking inventory and
clipboard, yeah, like ticking them off. Yeah, man.
And then the other physical element about this, and again, I don't know, I already filmed a video reviewing this, so people can go back and watch that too. But it comes with like a piece of acetate that has the fish printed on it as well, which kind of functions as a nice little cover. And then I also I had to make a decision when I like, it's got the little label on it that's like, hey, this is 1 of 50, so this is important. And then my dumbass started to peel the label off, because like that's how you get into it. And then like just this much into the label, I realized, well, it's on a clipboard. Like, you idiot, you can just get at it that way.
I was going to ask you if you had incorporated any elements that are going to drive you know, the comic type, the collector type baddie. And now, Carson, you've answered my question. Carson has now driven the collector type baddie by pulling off his optional pull-off label. Are comics in the UK, do they have that same kind of, you know, is there such a high percentage of people who have that, or is that mostly an American phenomenon? The sort of like, I've got my precious object and I'm going to cradle it now and put it in a plastic bag. And
I don't know, really. You know, there doesn't seem to be that many like comic book shops who do like the small press stuff, you know, who stock small press. Like, we have a Forbidden Planet here in Southampton. Do you know that? They're like a chain of comic book stores, but it's mainly kind of, you know, TV tie-ins, you know, Marvel stuff or whatever, you know. And they don't, they don't really have much for small creators like shelf or whatever, you know. It was a real shame, you know, because if I got to buy that stuff, like, I have to go online, you know, to find it.
Right.
So not sure.
Yeah, and I'm just lucky that we've got. I mean, I'm nowhere near Menachem. He's in New York, but I can follow his Instagram, and he must have ordered a
Yeah.
couple to have some here in the States, because it really is a fantastic project. And then you're also looking at like I put like, where do I put this on my shelf in
Yes.
relationship to all my other comics? Like, how does it go in there? How am I not going to scratch up the acetate? So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the problem I've had. Like getting it stopped into comic stores. It was hard for that reason, because I think like a few of them kind of thought, well, how are we going to have this on the shelf? Like, where's this going to go? Do you know what I mean? And it's much harder, like when it's not a standard kind of book. It's harder for them, I guess, but yeah.
And is that a boundary you're interested in pushing further, like with further projects?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like my next one, I'm doing all on vellum, like paper. So all the paper is, slightly translucent.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of doing a square book like that, which should be interesting. Again, it's probably not going to be very, sturdy. Like in a stock room, whatever. But yeah, but it should be fun.
Well, I'm definitely getting a copy of that when it comes out.
Yeah,
I'll watch your Instagram closely.
I'm tempted to go to local overstock warehouses and try to find some objects that I can attach
Yeah.
to 15 plungers. It's a limited run comic about when I worked as a janitor.
Yeah, exactly. The sky's the limit, isn't it? Yeah.
So Carson, you had mentioned that this was made on a Risograph machine. You guys can correct us in the comments if we're saying it incorrectly. My apologies.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce it. Or did it come from Brazil and it's pronounced Risograph? I don't know.
Will you tell us about the actual print process? We kind of geek out about printing
Yeah.
and such, and this is something that we're interested in.
Yeah, so the Risograph machine, I think is Japanese. It looks like a photocopier. It's quite a big sort of thing, developed in like the 1980s, I think. And it's basically like it's a cross between like screen printing and photocopying. So you have like an ink drum, and like the comic you've got there is a 3-color one. Then it has to go through the machine 3 times. Between each time you change the ink drum, and you get like this offset effect that you get with screen printing. Where they're slightly misaligned, and it's a really cool effect that you kind of get. And I think like because of the advent of small press and stuff, and like the resurgence and kind of that sort of thing, it's become quite a popular thing, and I've been considering like having my own machine, getting hold of one, but I've sort of heard that they're like massively like temperamental. Yeah. If you go on eBay, like they're all like spares or repairs, like Riso machines, because they're so, they're a bit of a nightmare to work with,
And it's an older tech, right? Like they're not actively making these anymore, I'm assuming.
Well, there's still like a Riso website. So I think they still do some machines. I think the majority of the time it's older machines that are just like kept going, as far as I know. Yeah, but they're cool.
Yeah, it's amazing how long a really good copier from that era can last too, and how good an impression can be. I think people who grew up past that era or didn't do like paste up themselves or haven't made zines or whatever with a standard copier, because essentially Riso is like, you can swap out, like you said, the ink. You're essentially swapping out the drum, but it's otherwise functioning similar to a copy machine. And it's quite amazing how sharp you can get from just the simple standard copier machine that's operating in a what's now called like line art mode, but used to be just the standard where it's not half toning anything. It's just making the black or white,
Yes. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what gives it that sharp impression.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, it feels a bit like I think they were called mimeographs. I don't know. It was like when I
Okay.
was in grade school, you'd get like your math problems, and it was just like a blue printed thing, and you could go like just take one sheet and put it on there, and it would just go.
Yeah,
Like,
mimeograph. Yeah.
is that kind of what this is, but it's capable of doing more color, or is it a different process?
Yeah. I think it's that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's like 12 colors in a Risograph. Like 12 color drum. They do like fluorescent inks and stuff as well. And I guess like the ink drums must still be made now because they must run out of ink. So I guess,
Yeah.
they're still being manufactured. I think. I don't know really.
And so you take it out and physically put it back in. I thought it was something that you could like run it through and it'd print all three at once. You're taking it out and putting it back in, and take it out and putting it back
Yeah,
in.
I think so. Yeah. I think it does the pass of like one color. Then you stick the stack, like back in the tray or whatever,
Okay.
and then it'll pass through again. I think it's really quick, like, prints fast,
Yeah.
And in the case of your particular printing, are you delivering, or are you bringing the physical art that you drew for each of those passes separately, or are you giving it data in some way? Like, are you bringing files in?
Yeah. It's all online. Yeah, so just
Okay.
Yeah. Like once the comic was done, I had to separate the colors out. This was 3 colors. I had to do it for each color, and make it like all black.
Gotcha.
And then when it goes to the machine, like, it prints the color, whatever color drum is in there,
Right.
So yeah, it's quite an interesting like process, and I want to do it again in the future. I think I think there's a lot more you can do with it. If you adjust the opacity of the black on each layer, you can overlay colors to get different shades of colors. You can have gradients and stuff like that, which look really cool.
That's one of the things that I was really curious about from your perspective as the maker is, okay, if you're doing some of this digitally, then it sounds like, and you're picking a color where it's not your typical CMYK, like this is kind of a odd primary color that you're choosing. So you have a variety of inks that you're choosing from as like a spot color. How are you then, like yours doesn't have a terrible lot of overlap, but you do have lighter and darker versions, I'm assuming, of the same color rather than 2 different inks.
Yes. So because the lighter blue there on the wall on that image, is just like the black at like half opacity or whatever, and you get a lighter blue.
How are you preparing these and visualizing what it's going to look like? Do they have something where it says this is the ink and this is the color, and then in Photoshop you're just using that color, or you're just kind of having to take your best guess?
Yeah, it's a bit of both really. You have to kind of just use guesswork, because I used gray on the pages there when really I could have mixed the yellow and the blue to make a greeny gray. Which I didn't really realize at the time. It could have been a 2-color print and would have been a bit cheaper,
So this third color here.
Yeah. So if I did it again, like I'd probably just mix the blue and yellow until I had a similar kind of tone to that gray. I could have done it that way, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Really, it was just like a learning curve for me doing it.
And it's a good way to learn on a 4-page project as opposed
that's
to
exactly right,
or a 500 page or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, definitely.
We're actually going to do. Well, it's a good time to mention we've been long threatening to do a series of technical videos that explain preparation for different types of things. And one of the videos we're going to do is a video about preparing and thinking in spot color, so that'll be, that's going to be a couple weeks out from here. But one of the things I'll do is I'll look up some of the technical specs of the Risograph process, and we'll make that as an addendum to the spot color video. So
that'd be really useful.
how
Yeah.
to sort of connect those pieces together, because you know, there's particularities for how, you know, you're delivering something for any particular thing, but the actual process is very similar to Spots in the
Yeah.
sense that you can do the same trapping and, you
Yeah.
know, variations of tone and things like that.
Well, that's what got me so fascinated with this. I think I've now got a number of things that are done with the Risograph, but yours was the first one, like where I saw that word and I was like, and the other thing about it is it doesn't use dots in the same way, so the colors feel more full and rich and physically present. But then I'm looking at these and I'm thinking from a production standpoint, and then I've seen some where they are using those overlaid colors that you're talking about, and it's just boggling my mind like how people are controlling this and projecting it. So it's like, well, I have to talk to Matt Canning, because A, I love the physicality of the thing, but B, I'm so curious about how in the hell people are doing this.
Well, if you've been working for can design, I mean, you've got probably a tremendous amount of experience thinking in the abstract about the physical product like that.
Yeah, I guess like that's really kind of helped, like working there. It definitely makes you think about stuff like that. You know, I suppose like with all print design, really, you know, there's always stuff to consider, you know, and Risograph's kind of no different, I guess. You know, it's just like a few years ago, I did a bit of screen printing myself. I got a few screens and the inks and stuff, and like I wanted to do like, you know, posters and stuff like for bands, and that was a nightmare, man. Like screen printing by hand is like really hard, you know. And like the cool thing about Riso is that it's like screen printing, but it's a machine, right? You know, it does all the hard work for you, and all the ink is contained in a cylinder, you know. Whereas screen printing, it's like, it's just so messy and like, it's a nightmare, you know. But the effect is really cool. Like I love screen printed stuff, you know. That was why I love Riso, you know.
So do you think that's part of the reason? That was another question I had talking to one of the other guys that we talked to a lot on the channel. He was saying, oh, I think like unless you have access to one, it's kind of expensive. My assumption is that the reason all of the kind of indie people are doing it is it's a cheaper process than getting an offset print. But what's the relationship like versus a digital print, and why not just go with the digital print versus the Riso? Like, why do you think it's kind of becoming the go-to thing right now?
I think because of the colors and the options you've got to overlay stuff and be creative, you know, in like a print, in a sort of like print process sense. I think like that's what people are into. You know, it is probably a bit more expensive than just doing a digital print, you know, but you've got a lot more control over how stuff looks, if you know what I mean, you know, and like, and the paper stock, you know, you can use, you know, it's pretty unlimited, you know. Like, you can just go to your Risograph printer and say, oh yeah, I want like this, you know, bright blue paper or whatever, and you can do it, you know. You can't necessarily do that with a digital press, you know. So yeah.
But versus like offset, it's probably cheaper because you're not having to burn the plate and set up a big machine and all of that.
Yeah.
Anytime you're doing offset, you've got the setup costs to contend with, and so until you hit about 1,000 units, your cost is going to be more expensive. And then once you hit 1,000 units, all of a sudden you've justified the machine starting up, and you've justified the technician, and you've justified the plates, and all of a sudden it's cheaper. But yeah, I think,
and the cool thing with Riso as well is like you can do it in like small runs. You know, if you want to do a run of 10, you know, you can get somewhere to do that for you. You know.
I think that there's another phenomenon too, which I've kind of noted over time, which is anytime that something that was previously impossible or very difficult to do becomes ubiquitous. There's a time where it totally takes off, and then it shrinks back down again because you kind of saturate it, and if you think about like sort of photo, like photorealistic, or like the image, a printed image, as like that looks like the thing. That was such an unattainable thing for so long that once that becomes ubiquitous, I feel like there's a backpedaling where someone says, well, you know what, I really liked when I could see all the little wheelie dots on on my Christmas card that I sent out to my aunt that was printed with a 8-plate lithography or whatever. There's something really cool about that, and then it reminds you of some other time that's passed. All these other little accumulated details. I think Riso is very similar in that sense, that the
absolutely
printed object has this kind of stamp to it that I mean, I don't know. I see some people experimenting again with spot color and things like that, and I think there's no coincidence that that was something that basically got killed by affordable 4-color printing. Back as soon as 4-color separation was like you could just tell the computer to do it. Spot color was just dead, and then we had a period of 40 years where, or 30 years, are the only people who use 20 years are the only people who use spot color are weirdos like us who have some kind of aesthetic attachment to it.
That's something else. Like looking at the designs you do for the cans, there's a specific color aesthetic that I also associate with a lot of the art. And I know your can design's probably not a risograph process, but there's a certain design aesthetic that seems to be part of this risograph in terms of the color use. And I think it is because they do have that weird it's not just a 4-color, there's like an expanded palette that people are playing with, and those fluorescents that you talked about. Do you separate those two things, or is that like part of the influence of the aesthetic you're bringing to the cans as well?
I don't know. I think it's a personal preference. Like I've always liked desaturated colors and like pastel colors, and like the paperbacks of the 1960s and stuff, those kind of like heavily kind of graphic design sort of stuff where like the colors are kind of just muted. I really I'm just really drawn to that. I hate like black, 100% black. It's just like too much for me. Like I'd rather go dark gray. Do you know what I mean? Like I always kind of, I just can't stand kind of really bright colors for some reason.
It's just interesting because that's just something that that's also, these two things seem to be in the air at the same time and kind of related to each other, those more pastels, or I think a lot of it looks like vaporwave type of colors too. Not your stuff so much, but there's like that aesthetic somehow is leaking into the scene as well.
There's also, it's worth mentioning that there's practical considerations when you're talking about package design and you're talking about flexography. Anytime you have to screen something that's going to be printed on the side of something that's flexed or whatever, the screen is going to be super coarse. So you working with spot colors and working with a limited palette, you're going to get a better product. And it's funny that not everybody seems to know that. Like I'm the print nerd who's at the grocery store, and I'm like, frickin', Ralph's doesn't know when they make their almond milk that they need to not screen their words because this is totally unreadable. It's totally misregistered. It's like, but then you see like what's the name of the Italian company that makes these beverages that are like citrusy, bubbly drinks. My wife is gonna kill me.
I don't know. I don't drink canned drinks. Well, sorry, Matt.
It's one particular. We'll pop it in. We'll pop it in the video.
Okay. Well, you'll send it to me, and I'll pop it up.
Beautiful. The most stunning package design you can imagine, and it's all done with 2 colors and the can color. And it's like these ribbons of interweaving lines of color from the two colors that they're using, and it's like it's practical. It's a practical design because they know if they screen it, it's going to look like garbage.
Yep.
So then now I better understand, Sean, why you're saying Matt designing for a flexographic like can printing. He would be very adept at like, okay, I've got 2 or 3 colors to work with and visualizing the combinations.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. That's interesting. Because I'm such of like the Photoshop color era coming up that like, yeah, I know, but I love the look of this stuff. It's so much more sophisticated, and that's why I'm so curious about it and curious about the process for the artist, because in my mind it's baffling to me how people are pulling this off. So we really appreciate you kind of explaining that.
No worries.
And giving me a sense of it. And then I'm really, anything else you do coming forward, like, please let us know.
Well, I'll show you one thing that I did. I love my first book. I did, called Honeymoon in the Afterlife. I don't know if you saw that on Instagram, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think
and the book is like, and the book is a standard like digital print. It's all black and white. I'll just sort of flick through, and I did like the Risograph like dust jacket, and it's black only. I don't know if you can see the gradient on the lettering there.
Yeah.
Like it's quite speckly. It's quite speck, which the Risograph gives you. But that was just a black only Risograph, which is pretty cost effective.
Yeah. Is that still available? Like, there's a link that I can send people at. What about Sprats for Gillian? I know it was a pretty limited run. Is that still something?
That's still available. Okay. That's still available.
We'll get links for that so people can order both of those things.
Yeah, if you guys want a totally innovative, one of a kind. Well, I say one of a kind, one of 50.
One of 50. And my dumbass started pulling the label off mine, so mine has now it's no longer in mint condition. So there's potentially 49 of these that are in mint condition.
Yeah, and
because Matt tricked me into grabbing the label even though I could pull.
Let me tell you, Matt, no U.S. a small press publisher in their right mind is gonna make their comic on a clipboard, because then they can't send it media mail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The old media mail. Anybody who's watching this is international. Within the United States, you can send something basically for no money whatsoever, as long as it's quote unquote media, which comics qualify as long as they have no advertising in them.
Okay.
So the old media mail shipping rate, they are subject to inspection, which means that the post office can open it up and make sure that you're only sending media. It's only comic books or CDs or a USB drive or whatever. And so they see that clipboard, man. That's just
this is a weird, elaborate scheme to ship clipboards to offices for cheaper.
Yeah, cool.
One last thing before we go, Sam Pellegrino.
Sam Pellegrino,
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, we have that here. It's a good sparkling water, that.
It is, and it's a sexy can design. So if you get a chance to, nice. Well, maybe we differ on the aesthetics of can design, but that one suggests to me, the bubbliness. And I'll never drink it again.
I'll throw up some images of some of Matt's can designs too, because they are also quite sexy. And whatever brewing company you're working for makes all kinds of different beers, because you have done so many cans.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I've done 140 labels, I think now, over 4 years. Yeah. So
is that stuff, people? I'm assuming that's like you got to be local to get that. I don't know how that works. Can you internationally ship booze?
I think you can pick it up.
Don't tell anybody. You got to say it's paper. Remember, medium.
Yeah. No. it's probably just UK wide. I don't know if they're in Europe yet or what, but yeah, no, it's good beer, you know, and the craft beer, you know, the scene in this country is like, if you're a brewery, you have to be releasing new beers every month, you know, to keep people kind of excited. There's new recipes all the time, new can art, you know, it's just a thing that they do, you know. It's a lot of different beer, you know, but yeah, I think people like it, you know.
Yeah. I lived with a brewmaster. He had like a master's degree in
I don't
know, microbiology or something, and he ran a brewery over in San Francisco, and now he's in Oregon. Fucking genius of that stuff. So I was a little bit privy to it, but yeah, the amount of different ones that you have, I imagine those are going to be collectible at some point, especially because like you're the dude, so there's a consistent aesthetic across a
yeah, I don't know, you know, like I've got like 3 boxes of empty cans, you know, in my shed kind of thing. Like I've been keeping them, but like I've got no idea what I'm going to do with them, you know. Probably just throw them out when I die or whatever, but you know, they're there, you know.
Someday there will be someone who will want to put them in plastic containers and save them.
Yeah.
Did it seem like maybe it was your destiny to somehow be involved with the can?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, because yeah, exactly.
Right.
Matt Canning. Yeah, loads of people have said that, you know.
Oh.
But
the joke that everybody makes. Damn it! Oh.
It's good. It's
Come on,
good. Yeah,
Sean,
no,
you
it is
didn't
weird,
think?
isn't it? It is weird, but kind of cool. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, and I didn't understand in Sprats for Gillian what the job was that this like. So to me, it looked like a canning factory kind of or something where they were canning frozen food. So I kind of mistook the Mr. Canning instead of MR Canning as like part of the story at first, and it took me a second to hunt you down on I had to see the Matt Canning on the back, and then I was able to hunt you down on Instagram.
Right. Yeah. Well, my middle name is Richard, and I thought it was, you know, cool to have initials, but I don't know. I might go back to Matt Canning for my next one, you know. I don't know.
It looks pretty cool. I like it quite a bit. So thanks so much for coming in and
no worries,
illuminating that for us a little bit. Just so people know, we're gonna go record another episode real quick where Matt has got a book that I just so happened to have ordered right before he told me he wanted to flip through it. So we're gonna go look at a book now that Matt is really excited about.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. This is the part where I pitch you all the things that you're supposed to do. Take a look at those links. Go get a picture, or go get one of our books. Go get one of Matt's books. Do some stuff. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.